Have you ever walked into a space and felt a weight, an aura of reverence and faith? The homes we dwell in are not just shelters from the rain, but often sanctuaries of belief, echoing with whispered prayers and with age-old traditions. In the realm of fantasy, these religious nuances can manifest tangibly, shaping not only the home's architecture, but also its very spirit. Welcome to another episode of Just in Time Worlds with your host, Marie Mullaney. Today, we'll delve deep into the spiritual tapestry woven into the walls of fantasy homes. This is the concluding video on my series of fantasy homes. If you haven't caught the other two, check out Homes and Cultures and Magic of the Home in the information cards. Now, this video has been available to my channel members for quite some time. And a shout out to Mr. Marmello and Dylan Butera, who are channel members. For those keen on early access to my videos, channel membership is open. With YouTube taking care of the logistics, your support directly fuels my journey into fantasy realms and gets you these cool perks. Okay, enough of that. Let's get cracking with religion in the heart of the home, where faith meets foundations. One of the most important considerations in creating fantasy homes is thinking about how the gods or spiritual practices of your people impact the home. In other words, how are the gods present in the home? There's a few models of spirituality you could follow, and each have their own kinds of impact. First, let's talk about guardian spirits. The Romans believed that lairs protected the home and fields, and some of these were ancestors who watched over their descendants. They were given offerings and had shrines called lararium, typically containing figures of the lairs placed in prominent places in the homes. Drawing on this kind of tradition of ancestor worship or guardian spirit worship, families in your world could have spirit totems or ethereal ancestral guardians. These spirits might offer guidance, protection, or even intervene in the mortal world during dire circumstances. You'd also want to decide if every ancestor became such a protective spirit, or if it was a fate reserved for perhaps the heroic ancestors, or the ancestors the gods consider worthy, or perhaps the ancestors who showed themselves to be truly wise. I personally would go for some kind of criteria. I don't think you want a spirit for every person in the ancestral line. It could get awfully crowded. But regardless, if you have such a system of guardian spirits drawn from your ancestors, it has quite the impact on your home construction. Poorer homes might have a simple altar with handmade figures, while wealthier homes might have an entire room dedicated as a shrine. The location and design of these spaces can be indicators of the socio-economic status of the inhabitants. But even if your poor family suddenly gains a chunk of wealth, that doesn't mean they can just up and leave. After all, you might risk leaving your spirits behind, and then who would protect you? So what to do? Rituals might be performed to transfer the spirits from one dwelling to another. The old shrine could be decommissioned in a ceremonial way, ensuring the spirits are respectfully moved. If this was not done, the family might lose the protection of their ancestors, and that could leave them vulnerable to attack and downfall. This kind of ancestral spirit in the home plays well with themes of respect for the past, the cyclical nature of life, and the protective essence of familial bonds. But it is not the only model of ancestor worship. So sticking with ancestors and moving eastward, let's talk about the East Asian practices of ancestral worship. Many East Asian cultures believe in honoring their ancestors through rituals, offerings, and dedicated shrines. This is seen as a way to maintain a connection with the past and seek blessings of your ancestors. In fantasy, spirits of ancestors could be more tangible entities in the worlds that we create. They could appear during rituals or even in dreams, or perhaps even walk among the living during specific times of the year. Indeed, in Jacqueline Carey's world of Terre d'Ange, there is a ritual called the Day of the Dead in the Alban Kingdom, which is based on the Celtic traditions, where the dead walk with the living, and our hero Imriel saw his father in the second book of his trilogy, Geschiel's Justice. This obviously had a dramatic impact on the character, especially as at the time he was preparing to become a father himself. So, you could play with that kind of spiritual impact as the ancestors visit their descendants to offer the wisdom or blessings that they gained in life or death. If you have this kind of ancestor worship, especially where ancestors are worshipped in the home, homes might feature gardens or glades specifically for contemplation and communication with the ancestors. Spaces within the home might be designated for ritualistic dances, chants, or offerings. A great example of this comes from Raymond Feist and Jannie Wertz's Daughter of the Empire. The contemplation glades and the natami, the stone containing the ancestor spirits of the clan, play crucial roles in the story. This reflects the deep connection between the living and the departed in the world of Turani. They really do some great world building with these elements. They show the sacred nature of the glades when Mara is attacked in her glade during her mourning process. So when she's attacked and her bodyguard defends her, he actually gets a death sentence for entering the glade despite the fact that he saved her life. She doesn't execute him, just on a side note. She makes him wear this black rag saying he's under threat of execution, but he still serves her even alive. It's kind of a break of tradition, but it's using tradition in your way. It was so well done. I freaking love Daughter of the Empire. If you pinned me down and asked me which book of Feist do you truly love, I will every time tell you Daughter of the Empire. If you like intricate world building and deep politics, read that book. It is so good. Anyway, back on point. When there's conflict between Mara and another family, there's this threat that your Natami will be taken and buried face down, thus denying your ancestors their place under the sun. And this vibes very well with a theme supported by this kind of ancestor worship. You can create themes that emphasize the weight of the past on present decisions and also increase conflict when characters rebel against that kind of ancestral expectations. It becomes a very intense mix of past versus present in this kind of direct ancestor worship. So those are two models of spirits in the home. But what if you don't have that kind of afterlife? What if you simply want to bring the gods and their worship into the home? A good example from our world is the Jewish practice of the mezuzah. I don't know 100% if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I did try and research it, but obviously I'm not Jewish, so I might be saying that word wrong. A mezuzah is a parchment scroll with specific Hebrew verses from the Torah. It's affixed to the doorpost of Jewish homes as a symbol of faith and a reminder of God's presence and commandments. I actually know about it only because my very religious mother, despite being Christian, used to do this to the doors of our home. For her, it was a sign that God was protecting our house, and also an acknowledgement of the Jewish roots of Christianity. Anyway, in a fantasy setting, these inscriptions could serve not just as reminders, but also as real protective barriers against dark magic or evil creatures. Homes might have specific slots or designs incorporated into door frames for these protective scrolls. Regular rituals might involve praying or chanting by the door to renew the scroll, or even reinscribing it. I have an example of this kind of protective magic from religion from a fairly unlikely source, the work of Jane M. Auel in her Stone Age fantasy novels, the Earth Children series. Now here, when people leave their camps, they put a figurine of the mother goddess, they put it into the ground, and this serves to protect their camp and their belongings, reflecting how spiritual symbols can be integrated into transient or mobile homes. So even if your people are nomadic, it might be that they have such rituals and religious items that they incorporate into their homes to protect them. I could see prayers stitched into the tent flaps or inscribed into caravans. And a good far future example of this is Warhammer 40k, where Imperial ships often have prayers and litanies to the Emperor inscribed on their hulls to protect them in the chaos of the war. And those ships are home to thousands of people. So don't think that this is just for use in fantasy or only in permanent homes. You can absolutely include this kind of thing in soft sci-fi settings or expand it to include mobile homes. This kind of religious practice of invoking a god or gods in the home works well for themes of protection, the intersection of belief and magic, and the power of words. You can create some great conflict in these stories when these barriers are broken or when characters challenge their efficacy or meaning. There is one other god in the home point that I wish to address, and that is the gods of home and hearth. For this, I'm going to turn to the Greek pantheon. Hestia, the eldest of the Olympian gods, presided over the hearth, home, architecture, and family. Unlike many other deities, she didn't have many tales of grand adventures or epic conflicts, but she was revered for her steadfastness and her central role in the domestic life and city functions. Having a deity like Hestia underlines the cultural significance of the home as the central unit of society. It indicates a society that values stability, tradition, family bonds, and the rituals of everyday life. This kind of a deity can have a whole series of impacts on homes in your fantasy world. Daily rituals might revolve around the hearth, which serves as a sacred center of the home. Lighting the hearth fire might involve special prayers or ceremonies. Every new home constructed could involve blessings or rituals to invite the goddess's protection. Similarly, when families move, there might be ceremonies to thank the goddess for past protection and to seek her favor in the new dwelling. And there is also an impact on gender roles with such a goddess. In many ancient societies, women had the main responsibility for maintaining the home. A goddess of the home might elevate the status and importance of women in society, giving them a crucial religious role, especially if the goddess is real and actually does impart her protection on a home with a properly maintained ritual aspect. A very cool example of Hestia in action comes from Rick Riordan's Percy Jackson series, where Hestia plays a subtle yet pivotal role. She appears as a young girl tending a hearth and emphasizes the importance of the home, family, and keeping the hearth burning, both the literal hearth and the metaphorical one. This ties into the series' overarching themes of family, belonging, and the quiet power of stability amidst chaos. Gods of Home and Hearth vibe very well with themes of the home as a sacred space, familial obligation, and the power of the mundane. Unlike gods of war or of the seas, a goddess of the home underscores the power and importance of everyday rituals, challenges, and joys. This can be a rich ground for character development and interpersonal conflicts in a story. If you want to explore those themes or write in what is called cozy fantasy genres, I definitely consider incorporating a god of the home and hearth. And if you enjoyed this exploration of gods in the home, hit the thumbs up button and let's talk about creating home rituals. Rituals of a spiritual nature that are conducted in the home can obviously fundamentally affect both your home and the culture of your people. So let's dive a little deeper into that topic. Let's say you have a culture that is closely aligned with nature. So you might have rituals like seasonal transitions to mark the changing seasons, ensuring safety and prosperity for the household. This could involve blessing seeds before planting or having a feast during harvest. Or you could have more regular rituals like the lunar ritual, where moon cycles could play a role in house cleaning, blessing, or other domestic tasks. You could even go with daily rituals, celebrations, or ceremonies at dawn or dusk could recognize the power of the sun in daily life. And if you want my thoughts on food in rituals and how to do it, check out the information card video. If you implement these kinds of rituals, your homes could be designed to align with sun paths, maximizing light during the rituals. Or structures might be orientated to capture the moon's cycles, allowing for specific rooms to be bathed in moonlight during significant phases. You can see some of this in action in our ancient megalith structures here in our world, where the light of the sun during certain times shines on specific parts of the structures. And for more of my thoughts on megaliths and that period of history, check out my video on Neolithic life. If you use these kinds of rituals, some great points of conflict are the disruption of natural cycles, even through events like an eclipse or other disruptions of the natural world. Of course, you don't have to go with natural alignments to have home rituals. You might do all of your life transitions as home rituals. So these rituals would include things like blessing rooms for new children or ceremonies to protect and welcome the child. There could also be rituals for mourning, possibly involving specific rooms or areas for remembrance, perhaps tying back to our ancestor worshipping habits. There could also be rituals for weddings or coming of age, potentially involving tasks or trials related to the home, like building your own home could be a coming of age task, or you could be required to invoke specific blessings of the gods. If your life rituals are all in the home, this would result in an interesting construction mechanic, where either you need dedicated spaces for each life transition, such as birthing rooms or memorial alcoves, or you would need to build alterable rooms that can be changed based on the current life cycle events the household is experiencing. In some ways, we do this a little bit in Finland. We say everything happens in the sauna, and if you're sick, just go sauna and you're all well again. So you could consider that kind of a room as the center point of a home ritual. Either way, it makes for a very interesting approach to fantasy homes. This kind of incorporation of rituals could be a great character backstory. If a ritual was improperly performed, it could start your character off with one heck of a complication that they have to overcome during the process of your story. These kinds of home rituals offers a wealth of opportunities for world builders to add depth and detail to their fantasy settings. They serve as a foundation for building out the daily lives of characters and the traditions that shape their worldviews. What kind of a home ritual would you include in your world? And what kind of a ritual room would you use? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're finding value in this video so far, consider giving it a super thanks. And let's talk spiritual practices in the home and their impact on the character. Daily rituals, especially those conducted in the privacy of one's own home, can offer a more intimate and genuine glimpse into a character's soul. Whether it's a warrior who silently lights a candle for a fallen comrade every night, or a mage who whispers prayers to an old deity before accessing their powers, these moments can reveal a character's vulnerabilities, strengths, and past traumas. This kind of practice also serves to highlight the differences between characters. Not all characters need to have the same rituals, especially in such an intimate form of worship, even if they do come from the same culture. So one character might strictly adhere to traditional practices, while another adapts them or even abandons them altogether. This variance can reflect personal experiences, rebellions, or specific teachings that they've encountered. And this offers you a fantastic show, don't tell opportunity. The origin of a character's home ritual can hint at their upbringing and experiences. A character might uphold ritual from a homeland from which they were forced to flee, showcasing nostalgia and a connection to their roots. Conversely, someone might adopt new rituals after a significant life event, indicating a shift in their beliefs or allegiances. The greatest characters in fantasy are those who grow through conflict, right? These home-based spiritual practices, with their intimate connection to the character's heart, offers fantastic elements for both conflict and growth. When characters with different spiritual practices share a space, like housemates, spouses, or families, there's a potential for disagreement, conflict, and growth. One might see another's ritual as blasphemous, outdated, or even dangerous. These tensions can challenge the characters to either defend, reevaluate, or hide their beliefs. Or, if you're more focused internally to the character, as characters grow and change, they might find their old rituals no longer align with their current beliefs. The struggle to adapt or abandon these practices can lead to introspective journeys and personal growth. And then, of course, a significant event, like the loss of a loved one, might push a character to adopt new rituals or seek out spiritual practices they had previously ignored. These changes can signify broader character development and shifts in their narrative arc. This allows you to show the impact of emotional moments on the character by showing them struggling with this change in their ritual in the most intimate part of their spiritual practice. But home rituals offer a further benefit to the world builder in the realm of symbolism and foreshadowing. The outcomes of specific rituals might be used to foreshadow events. For instance, a protective charm that unexpectedly breaks, or a prayer that's interrupted, could hint at looming dangers. Or if you want to play with more symbolic gestures, a character's actions within their ritual can tie to larger themes in the story. So lighting a candle could represent hope for the character, while snuffing it out might symbolize despair or surrender. Of course, for any of this to work, you'll need to establish these rituals early on. Then, when they reappear during pivotal moments, your readers know what it means and why it's important, and they can experience the same emotions as the character. And that way, they get a truly fulfilling story that is shown to them, not just told to them. Incorporating spiritual practices into a character's daily routine not only enhances the depth and complexity of that character, but also provides you with tools to enrich the narrative, foreshadow events, and underscore the themes of your story. And those are my thoughts on religion and spirituality in the home. Remember that I do also write fantasy books, and you can check those out in the links below if you want to support this channel. Also, before you leave, please do check out my video on totems and their effect on fantasy cultures. Oh, you're wondering why I'm still here? Well, see, I'm giving you the opportunity to click on that video. The algorithm loves the channel when you click on these end recommended videos. So please do, clicky.